This weekend, we had the incredibly rare opportunity to learn how to get better at draft from the top Magic players in the world. Winning the Pro Tour is one of the top accomplishments in Magic cards, and this year the top 8 was decided by draft. These drafts are recorded and broadcast over on Play MTG, but when you're watching live, it can be a little bit blurry and a little bit hard to follow exactly what's going on and exactly what you should take away. So today I'm going to use the example of this top 8 draft featuring Ken Yukuhiro to show you how I use this incredibly valuable resource to actually practically become a better drafter. So I've taken the exact pack that Ken is looking at here, and I transcribed it into a pack in basically the same layout that you would see one when you're drafting on Arena. I'm going to walk through Ken's choices, and I'm going to catalog the situations in which I would have made a different decision from Ken. The point of this exercise is, I'm not breaking any news here, Ken Yukuhiro is better at draft than I am. And so this is an extremely valuable learning exercise to calibrate my preferences in the set and align them better with a much superior drafter. So let's jump in. What would I do if I was looking at the first pack that Ken opened? So first of all, our rare is Hawkeye Master Marksman. It's a 2/2 for 1 and a red, first strike reach. When it becomes tapped, you can pay 1 up to 3 times. When you do, choose up to that many. Target creature can't block this turn, deals 2 damage to target player, and or discard a card, then draw a card. This is a very powerful rare, but it's a very powerful rare in by far the worst color. Taking this rare would be a strong statement that you're trying to pick up red pieces and you believe that the color is not as weak as most people think it is. I would say the vast majority of good drafters would not do that. That would be a very much zigging when everyone else is zagging kind of a decision, doing something really against the grain. Our uncommons are by and large rather weak. Death to Our Enemies and Rewrite History are both uncommon plans that have tended to be nothing special. Calling Wing seems to require a whole lot of support to be good. So I personally would be looking at one of our commons here. The white commons are both okay in the best color. Futurist Forge is a pretty strong one, but does require some synergy. I would have to be looking at Trickster's Stratagem. I consider this basically the best common in the set, alongside probably Hero in Training. The black and the red I wouldn't even be thinking about, nor would I think about, whoops, that's an uncommon, but nor would I be thinking about the Black Panther. Undercover Scroll is worth pointing out though. You could take a strong stance in the set that, hey, this is the best common in maybe, you could argue, an underdrafted color in green. And so you could make the statement, I would put it between these two cards. You could make the statement that starting with Undercover Scroll is worth doing. I would be very impressed and intrigued if you started with Hawkeye. I wouldn't hate someone starting with either Colleen Wing or Futurist Forge, I guess. But personally, I'm on the Trickster's Stratagem train. So I'm going to slap that on here as my pack 1 pick 1 way up in the top right up there. And let's see what Ken did. And to be crystal clear about this, I have not yet watched this video. I do not know how this draft turns out. I'm making my picks truly independently of Ken. He goes ahead and snaps up that Undercover Scroll. Whoa. Okay, it almost looked like he put it back. So I've already learned something, right? I'm gonna mark it down at the top that he put Scroll over Trickster's Stratagem. I'm Unlimited Splash. I never hate someone taking a Birds of Paradise variant. And that was a card that I had in the number 2 position. So I was basically on the right track, but hey, we did differ. All right, pack 1, pick 2, we have basically no rare. I mean, we get Worlds Within Worlds, which is a meme not worth memeing. Our uncommons are overall pretty unconvincing. Evil Sorrel, Human Torch, and Atama I would put pretty much right out. Agent Maria Hill I would be seriously considering though. I mean, it's got a very good ability if you have the synergy with it, but it's also just a Savannah Alliance in a set where white mid-range to aggro is quite good. Then among the commons, there's one that jumps out to me, which is Cruel Alliance. If you were really dedicated, if your Scroll pack 1 pick 1 was all about splashing, then hey, maybe there's a Hell's Kitchen to consider. But I think you have to be between, not have to, but I would be between Agent Maria Hill and Cruel Alliance here. Both, so green-white is a better color combination. We probably shouldn't be thinking in terms of getting married to our first pick exactly, but you do have to be avoiding probably red still, I would think. Green-blue is also very strong, and then green-black is quite workable. So I wouldn't be afraid to take Agent Maria Hill or Cruel Alliance. I wouldn't consider that I'm being pulled into a color that's less than ideal, and I think both cards have very strong individual card power. I think I'm probably putting Cruel Alliance a shade above Maria Hill. As I move the video forward, I feel incredibly validated by what Ken starts doing here. And here's the crucial reveal. He takes the Cruel Alliance. So I'm going to reserve this space up here for when we actually have a disagreement, because those are the situations in which I'm really learning something new. This was 100% agreement on the top 2 cards and then which one to pick out of those. And now I'm going to also be keeping track of Ken's deck so far in the sideboard zone over here. Pack 1 Pick 3 was quite a weak pack, so he had a Baxter Building in it, which is a very, very nice utility land. It can filter for colors, and then it can draw a card and activate only if you had a creature with toughness 4 or greater. I would immediately be considering that one. Pim Particles, I don't think there's really a use case for. There's just a bunch of cards that I would basically never take. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Captain Marvel are not the cards that you want to pull you into white. I mean, these are kind of already by Pack 1 Pick 3. Look, someone took a rare out of this pack, and then probably someone took an uncommon. Yeah, all 3 of these are uncommons. So we don't have super consistent or super strong signals yet. But if I'm not starting out white, I probably want to be pulled into it by some kind of a signal that white is actually going to be open. So I think you can kind of divide the pack into half. I mean, I'm not going to be taking Unliving Legionnaire, Kree Sentinel, or Hydra Assault Robot under basically any circumstances here. I mean, I think the Hydra Assault Robot is basically fine, but in a or it has a use case, but in a very, very niche deck. And again, it would be, just like with Hawkeye, an incredibly strong statement to snap that up Pack 1 Pick 3 after a green and a black card at a Pro Tour top 8 table. Of the remaining cards, I would take Ant-Man's Army or Baxter Building sooner than I would just take a specific color pair land. And I think I would take any of these 4 cards in the middle before I would take the Ant-Man's Army. It's just so much worse than Undercover Scroll. Coming 1 turn later and only fixing for 1 turn, I think you would only take that once you already know that you're in some kind of green splashy mid-range space. Now, between these 4 remaining cards, I almost don't think that there's a wrong answer. I mean, Simic has been really good pairing Aerial Doombot with Undercover Scroll. Could lead you in a nice statsy tempo direction, Simic tempo. But also, you know, I'm usually not a fan of 3 and a black destroy target creature, actually, or exile target creature. It's just so much clunkier than it looks in a lot of the last few sets. But I've really liked Hour of Defeat too, because I think slapping an extra Surveil on there just makes it good. So I do think it comes down to like, how much do you want to fight with the potential Azorius decks at the table for blue? Ken has not shown that much appetite for it in the first few picks. And similar to the white cards, I almost think maybe these aren't the reasons that you want to get pulled into blue. It just kind of splits you and overcomplicates things maybe. And in terms of sheer card quality, I actually think Hour of Defeat just beats out Frozen and Ice. Frozen and Ice can still get, I don't know, hit by your opponent's Gorilla. They can bounce their creature with Justice. They can blink it with Captain America to get rid of the Frozen and Ice. So I definitely think I'd rather have the Hour of Defeat. So I'd say I'm probably between these 3 cards. Between them, I guess I would just go with Hour of Defeat. I don't know. I think you probably want to know that you want a Baxter Building before taking it most of the time, ideally, but I could be wrong. Okay, I'm feeling pretty awesome about this because look at the 4 cards that Ken pulled to the front. That's an Aerial Doombot, a Frozen and Ice, Hour of Defeat, and the Baxter Building. And then what does he ultimately take? It's Hour of Defeat. Okay, so I kind of feel like I'm killing it. Okay, next we get this pack, which I think has to be a little bit of a surprise because look, we have 2 very strong white 2-mana commons, Brave Brawler, as well as Take Up the Shield, and a very good blue 2-mana common, We Say the Nay. In the colors that Ken is in so far, green and black, not that you should weight that too much at Pack 1 Pick 4, but still, there's essentially nothing. I'm not going to be taking Ninja of the Hand, I don't think, or definitely not Wakandan Royal Guard. Ninja of the Hand is maybe an outside consideration. Technically, you could also play this Ghost, but these are both huge steps down in power from the 3 best cards in the pack, which are We Say the Nay, Take Up the Shield, and Brave Brawler. I guess there's an outside mention for Atlantis attacks, but I'm a lot lower on this card than I used to be. I'm going to put this in the just not taking category. For me personally, it comes down to what do you make? This is like one of those crucial pivot moments in a draft. What do you make of having these 3 strong colors, these 3 strong cards across the 2 best colors, which you're not in yet? Is this the moment to pivot or speculate at least on moving into one of the strongest colors? Or if you do that, are you just going to get cut by people who are already there? We have to break this down and understand exactly what the signal means. One thing I want to call your attention to is that there's actually only 1 uncommon in the whole pack. Every single other card that we're looking at here is in fact a common. Oh, sorry, there's also a Team Tactics. So there are 2 uncommons, neither of which is really worth picking. So what does that mean has happened so far? 3 cards have been taken out of the pack. This basic land is nothing. One of those cards, at least one of those cards was a rare. Maybe this pack started with 2 rares. So 1 or 2 rares were taken. And the other cards have to have been uncommon because we're left with only 2 uncommons, right? So seeing 3 strong commons, in my opinion, this should not actually be considered a signal yet. This is almost 0 information. And the reason is, suppose that 2 rares were in the pack. People taking 2 strong rares does not tell you anything about what colors those rares were in, and 1 uncommon being in the pack, we really don't know anything about that uncommon. It could have been anything across any of the 5 colors, because there are plenty of cards across all 5 colors that you would take over Team Tactics and Ghost. As soon as we start getting signals, I'm going to represent them all the way on the left side of your screen. What that says to me is I don't have an inherent reason to pivot white. Look, the reason that Brave Brawler is good in the format, it's like a pretty strong card, I guess, but it's not that it's such an incredibly inherently strong piece of cardboard that it lifts itself up. It's that it's a perfectly functional 2-drop in white, right? And white is just so dominant in Arena Premier Draft. Take Up the Shield, I do think, is inherently a very good card. You could justify taking it, but you're going to take it if you want to go into a deck that's white and is doing a lot of combat. That's pretty different from what we've done so far. Maybe you would take Up the Shield if you thought you could end up in like white-black equipments, if you thought that's a viable place, or well, any kind of white-black deck. But if either of the rares that was taken, or the uncommon, or maybe they took another common, you know, we don't know how many rares are originally in this pack. If any of those cards were white, which there's just a very high chance of, then you're basically setting yourself up to fight with those people for what is by consensus, I think, the strongest color by like a lot in the format. I guess you could say basically the same thing for blue. Blue has an equal number of commons to white, slightly lower in quality because Atlantis Attacks is probably below these two in most people's pick order. But I'm going to say we still just don't have much signal about either of these colors being particularly open. So I would say it's a decision that comes down to there's no major reason to pivot per se. We're not getting a strong signal that white is open and we should jump in. So the question is, which one has the individual card power and a really good chance of making whatever deck we're going to end up with, whether or not we keep these exact cards or not, but is it kind of in the same direction that we're going in? Is it a coherent continuation of what we're thinking? And to me, I would say I'm pretty happy to end up actually in blue-black or green-blue. I mean, or blue-white if we just magically get a whole bunch of signals that white continues to be open. I'm not specifically married to playing black, so I think Ninja of the Hand is too big a concession here in my view. It's an okay card, but it's like on the lower end of okay. Maybe you have to play a certain amount of that if you're a believer in green-black mid-range. But I just think the power concession is a little bit high. Between We Saving A and Take Up the Shield, I actually think lines that include playing We Saving A, I personally expect them to be a little bit less contested than lines that include Take Up the Shield. The chances that the 3 people to our right have already taken a white card and really want to stay in that lane is higher, in my view, just a personal metagame call, than the chances that they've already taken a blue card and want to stay in that lane. So I think with this start, I'm on the We Saving A train. I would put number 3 most tempting card as Ninja of the Hand. Number 2 most tempting card is Take Up the Shield. And I wouldn't really be thinking about taking anything else. So for me personally, I'd probably go with We Saving A here, but it is a pivot. So I'm curious if Ken actually went with, I don't know, maybe Ninja. So this is really interesting. He basically fully considered 2 of the picks that I put at the top 3, Ninja of the Hand and Take Up the Shield. Doesn't really look like he thought about We Saving A as a viable option. And ultimately, he ends up just snapping up Take Up the Shield. So basically, I got the right idea, which was, let's just speculate on the strong card in a stronger color. But he said, let's go all the way. Let's speculate on maybe exactly as powerful or maybe ever so slightly more powerful card in an ever so slightly more powerful color. So I think there's actually an important learning for me here. I'm going to call it go for it. Pack 1, pick 4. I was willing to speculate, but I actually did a little bit less of a speculation than Ken did. I wonder if what I went for was maybe a safe middle ground where it's like, you know, I'm kind of counting myself out a little bit by just trying to go for the white card that's the blue card that's a little bit less powerful instead of the white card that's a little bit more powerful. It kind of makes me think that, you know, if you're going to speculate, just speculate on the most powerful card. I think I actually can immediately see why my thinking was erroneous. And by the way, if you're serious about getting better at limited with learnings like these, make sure that you're subscribed to my channel on YouTube. I post a new video every weekday focused not just on me getting better at draft and sealed, but taking a community of improvers right along with me by narrating my thought process using data to understand what's going on in the formats and documenting and sharing my learnings so that you can benefit from them as well. So make sure to subscribe. All right, pack 1, pick 5. We have Echo, Perceptive Prodigy, and Viv Vision as our uncommons. Neither of them is terribly convincing. Then there's a bunch of commons that I wouldn't, ranging from wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, like Super Strength, to rather mediocre, or in a color I'm not really willing to get pulled into unless I have to, like red. Both of the black commons are quite weak. Our biggest allegiance to a color so far is black, and I'm really not looking to take either one of these. So I'd have it between the Mana Fixing and Frozen in Ice. I think Frozen in Ice stands out as an individually quite powerful card, and both of these stand out as maybe not the best Mana Fixing. I mean, so far we've experimented with 3 colors. Pym Technologies only touches one of them, so we don't know yet that we're looking for that particular splash. And then Savage Land Dinosaur, I mean, it's fine. But I think Frozen in Ice is actively good. So even though this involves speculating on a 4th color, now I'm actually going to go out and say, I think we're beginning to see signals of blue, because look, like Echo is like, can be played in certain niche situations. Pym Technologies is a dual land that someone might want if they were specifically already in Simic, although hard to believe that would happen by pick 4. But Frozen in Ice following right on the heels of a We Savey Nay, that starts to add up to something to me. I will also say, this is what I was a little bit concerned about with the Take Up the Shield pick. The idea that you're kind of speculating on white when you do not really have any strong information, even in my opinion, that much of a scrap of information that people have not taken white cards, because there were several rares and uncommons taken out of that pack. Maybe every card taken out of that pack was a rare or an uncommon. So we actually have no real information about what color of commons people are preferring at this point in the draft. So we kind of took Take Up the Shield as a pure speculation that maybe those rares happened to not be white that people took to our right. But it's a very good bet that at any table where anyone knows anything about the format, white is going to be very heavily contested. So if you step into white, you have to be willing to fight for it. And it's very possible that this pick was wasted because we just see white dry up right after. So this already makes me worry that that's exactly what just happened. Having said that, it is also possible that Ken took it thinking you might even splash Take Up the Shield. It's a little bit worse to do that in this environment than in just some random online draft, because it's an open deck list. Whereas in an online draft, you might get some equity by having like a few undercover scrolls and then playing a Take Up the Shield totally out of surprise. Here, your opponent would know that it's coming. But having said that, I'm continuing to just want to take the strong blue comments, and I'm actually going to put a little blue plus sign in the bottom left here to show that I actually kind of think that was a blue signal. Watching Ken's pick here is interesting. He's actually between Frozen in Ice and Hydra Troopers, it seems. And ultimately, the card he takes is the first. I'll admit, I'm a little surprised that Hydra Troopers was even a consideration over like Pym Technologies or Savage Land Dinosaur. But I guess he really does think that the like black creature based mid-rangey stuff is good. I guess maybe I'm undervaluing Hydra Troopers a little bit is what I can say from that, because I pretty much wrote that off completely. All right, pack 1, pick 6. There was a rare in it, Armor Wars, which is not really worth thinking or talking about. Iron Lad does actually continue with the feeling that blue is open. I guess it means blue-red specifically is open, especially taken together with Armor Wars, which is not a surprise at all, given that we're only at pack 1, pick 6. I'm going to put Crimson Operative and also the dual land off to the side as cards we're not really considering. And that leaves us with this collection of commons. The first one that I would want to drop out is Kingpin's Enforcers. I think much like with Ninja of the Hand, we're not really getting signals that black is open, or maybe we're even beginning to get signals that black is not open. I mean, I guess we just had those multiple black commons, but they were very, very low power ones. And Kingpin's Enforcers kind of fits that trend. I'm definitely not fighting to stay in black so hard that I'm going to be taking Kingpin's Enforcers here. I think Savage Land Dinosaur, similarly, it's just not the moment to be picking the Savage Land Dinosaur. We just have better cards to choose from. So here, I would probably be between Reptile and AIM Scientists. I do think Rapid Rescue is good and underdrafted. I actually have a lot to say about Rapid Rescue that I won't get into right now. But I think you want to know that you're in that lane before you start investing in these like cards that are about pure consistency. It's not really a pull into green, and we're still kind of speculating, looking for like the absolute essential meat and potatoes of a deck. I think just like a 1-drop beats out a card that's for consistency at this stage in the draft. Rapid Rescue is probably also more replaceable because probably a narrower niche of decks will be that interested in it. Okay, so between AIM Scientist and Reptile, this might be really weird of me. I think I would lean Reptile for 2 different reasons. Number 1, it's just a 1-drop creature, like a way to, especially in a really high skill pod I've never drafted in a PT top 8, but I've drafted with some very good players. And I think in a high skill pod, you should often just prioritize cards that can just win a game on their own. Not that Reptile is often going to deal the finishing blow, but it can, and it also just stops you from falling behind. So it's good in the early game. It's a usable piece in the late game, and it doesn't count on you getting more good cards in the second half of the pack the way that like Rapid Rescue kind of does. So I think just sticking to limited fundamentals, taking the cheaper card, taking the creature, just makes sense to me here. AIM Scientist, taking a 4-drop over a 1-drop is a little bit of a tough sell, unless you specifically know that you're interested in conniving synergies or the land cycling. And this would be leaning maybe more back in the direction of blue-black, whereas, and that's the other big reason that I would favor the Reptile, I think we're beginning to see some signals of green. This is like the second or third pack where we have been looking at a few green cards as options. I think green is looking maybe more open than black, and so I would wonder if maybe we should be leaning in the direction of Simic, perhaps, rather than green-black or blue-black. So I think for all those reasons, I would favor Reptile, and I'm going to put a little green signal on the bottom left there. All right, what does Ken do? He pulls 2 cards to the front, Kingpins Enforcers and AIM Scientist, my number 2 and number 3 pick, and takes Kingpins Enforcers. Actually, that's not even really fair. I think I eliminated Kingpins Enforcers as the number 4 potential pick. So this is my third difference of opinion with him. He takes Kingpins Enforcers much more highly than I would have. It's not that I think Reptile is so good. It's more like Enforcers over pivoting, or he's expressing a preference for black, perhaps. I'm guessing it's about that more than individual card power. I think I'm seeing a signal where he doesn't really. He maybe doesn't think that green is being kind of demonstrated to be a little bit more open, or he really thinks that black is something that he wants to fight for. He has a strong preference to stay in black. So I'm going to call it Enforcers over pivoting, more than it's about just like Enforcers over Reptile. All right, then pack 1, pick 7 is pretty beautiful for us, given the lane that we've carved out so far. There is Kang Temporal Tyrant, a 3/4 for 4. When it attacks, it connives. When you draw your second card each turn, you drain the opponent. What's most important for me about this is a signpost uncommon for a color pair. I wouldn't say it's late exactly, but it comes at a moment when it definitely constitutes a signal. Put that together with I Am Iron Man having the Rocks and Roots, Hydra Troopers, which Ken even considered taking a few picks ago, and just the low card quality in every other color. I mean, this is our millionth Captain Marvel, not a card that we're looking for. Knights of Wundagore, Evils, Thrall, and Super Speed are all, part of the rogues gallery of some of the worst cards in the set, unless you really support them with synergy. And so it's really looking like blue-black is quite noticeably open here. So this is a fantastic signal, kind of contrary to what I just thought about green being open, but we'll see. And personally, I would be all over that king, partly because of the signaling importance of this. If you're passing a blue-black signpost uncommon, pack 1, pick 8 at that point, you're going to put someone in colors that look like probably your best prospect at this moment. So I would be taking King and not even thinking that much about it. It's not that this is an amazing card, but it has a very high power ceiling, and it looks like it's just exactly the lane that you want to be in. Ken did not have to think hard about this one. He takes a King off the top. He looks for a moment at Hydra Troopers, but King is just the clear winner. We can move a little faster through the end because now next pack, there's actually another very clear signal, another blue-black card, this time a blue-black land. This is just kind of beautiful. Getting all these blue and black cards, I mean, for a moment, I did kind of think that black specifically might be a little bit cut, but I think that was just not the case. And we definitely have gotten consistent signals that blue was rather open, especially in the middle of the pack, with We Saving A into Frozen and Ice into AM Scientists, into the blue-black card, into another blue-black card. So we really just found our lane. I mean, it looks like the blue-black line is coming together for Ken. I would absolutely take Hidden Lair here, and that's exactly what Ken did. All right, so here is pack 1, pick 9. We get back a Visions of Villainy. I mean, technically rewrite history, but nothing else in colors that we're really considering. If you want to see what other people took, it's right here. So someone took the Trickster Stratagem, of course. Someone took the Kunlun Warrior. Someone's taken a Futurist Forge, a Burrow Backup and Colleen Wing, but not the Kree Commandos. So we don't have a desperate white drafter at the pod. And then someone took Black Panther. So someone may be very strongly considering green-white. And then also the Hawkeye, the rare, is gone. So strong signals that there are brave souls willing to venture into red, but you don't need to really remember all of that. I think a strategy that is useful in this kind of a situation is thinking about cards that, if they were still around pick 9, would constitute a signal to you. That's kind of what I try to do, is like in pack 1, I think of a candidate like pair of cards where it's like these two look pretty pick 1 through 8able, or pick like 6, 7, 8, or they could end up in pick 9. And that, whether they are still in the pack at pick 9, will indicate to me what direction the pod is going in. I would say a candidate, if we had done this exercise at the beginning, might be something like Kree Commandos versus Visions of Villainy, where these are both cards that you don't really want to pick up, but if one of them is gone, it points to you, like, if Visions of Villainy is gone by pack 1, pick 9, there might be someone who's really interested in being black, who's kind of scraping the bottom of the commons barrel. And same thing with Kree Commandos. If the Kree Commandos is gone by pack 1, pick 9, you have a lot of white drafters at your table, right? Because you pass Burrow Backup plus Colleen Wing, and basically anyone, I think, would have Kree Commandos number 3 in the pick order if they're in white after those 2 cards. So if it's still in there, that means you're probably looking at like 2-ish white drafters rather than 3-ish white drafters so far. And we actually got both of them back. So that tells us something about where the pod's head is at. Anyways, I would just be taking Visions of Villainy, no questions asked. Out of this pack, actually, I won't show Ken's pick every time from now on for just these dregs of the pack, but he actually took a Rewrite History, which is really interesting to me. I guess the thing I should take from that is Rewrite History can possibly be played. I mean, I thought this card was cool at pre-release, but I think it's really hard in this format to have like do nothing blue enchantments when you're facing down like the white onslaught or the green stats. But okay, hey, lesson for me. Pack 1, pick 10. I don't think there's much to say. It looks like, I mean, bad red cards are available. There's no real lesson there. I'm just taking Ultron Drone. If you want to see the cards that were originally in this pack, there you go. I mean, Hell's Kitchen is gone. Stolen Stark Tech is gone. This is kind of interesting. People taking like bad black. Well, Stolen Stark Tech is actually perfectly fine, but like taking the black-red land is, interesting. Like that either means someone's getting really splashy or they want to be in black-red. Atama being gone is interesting. That's like not the best blue card. So people, and also Hydraulic Helper being gone. That's actually maybe even more surprising. So it kind of seems like maybe someone is ending up in blue-red artifacts. We'll see if that Iron Lad wheels. We might not get to. Yeah, no, Iron Lad was pack 1, pick 6, it looks like. So no way is that wheeling. So yeah, maybe someone went into blue-red artifacts. But okay, even if you don't remember any of that, the signal is basically, blue and black. Blue is probably contested. Black is probably contested. But blue-black did not seem to be contested. Anyways, I would take the Ultron Drone. That's exactly what Ken did as well. All right, pack 1, pick 11 is actually incredibly interesting. There's an argument for every single card in the pack, basically. And I'll give each argument in turn. Okay, Kree Sentinel is the one where the argument is the least obvious, right? The thing about Kree Sentinel is you do have edge cases where you play an off-color land cycler. This should be very rare. But if you end up, let's say, pack 3, pick 5, getting past some kind of bomb that the people next to you turn out not to be able to play, that is not in your colors, and you have not yet invested in fixing, then it is very possible that you would just stick in a card that is going to be land cycling no matter what, maybe go down to 16 lands, or maybe 16 on-color lands plus an off-color basic would be the play. And then this would be your second pip, and then maybe you can scrounge up like a dual land or another land cycler in the remaining half of pack 3. That's the case in which you would take the Kree Sentinel, basically speculating on getting a bomb so late that you don't have the fixing for it, and not having had another opportunity to pick up a land cycler until then. It's a very, very niche case, which is why I think this is the least obvious argument. Probably more common in sealed that you would end up playing a land cycler that does not share a color with your other cards. Just because you might not have any on-color land cyclers in your pool, but really need to make your mana base better. Okay, Burn in Zana Plaza. In what situation would we play that? The situation we would play it is if we want to either end up making green a main color for some reason. Say blue gets just absolutely completely cut pack 2 and we're flowing in green cards. Then I might, with my Undercover Scroll plus Burn in Zana Plaza, plus let's say we get one other Undercover Scroll or Ant-Man's Army or something like that, then I could actually splash take up the shield. Maybe there's a world in which I do that. Or I'm preparing for a future white splash with the knowledge that a lot of the best cards in the format are white. So I would be taking this if I think I might have a good shot of ending up in green after pack 2. And then I would play this as a dual land if I also get a white card. So that's kind of 2 conditional statements that you would sort of have to believe to invest in the Burn-in Zana Plaza. Okay, what's the argument for Pim Particles? Pim Particles is not a card that you're looking to play on your own because usually 1 mana cantrip that just makes something vigilance and unblockable is not worth it. The situation in which it's good, though, is synergy with cards like Kang. And I wouldn't even say good, just like could be played. So Kang, when you draw your second card each turn, you drain the opponent. So if you have Kang out, Pim Particles drains the opponent as well. Look, that's obviously not the greatest synergy anyone's ever heard of, but there are some, when you draw your second card each turn, things going on in the format. And so Pim Particles, I mean, this is why they printed it in the set. You're speculating on getting some of those synergy payoffs that this is an enabler for. Having said that, it's also a niche case. Okay, and then finally, Unliving Legionnaire. This one has the most straightforward argument for just taking it. That argument is it has 3 power in the air, potential of 5 power in the air, and it can just kill a player. I'm instantly reminded of this thing I cite all the time that Jason Yee said, I believe on the Limited Level Ups podcast like a year or 2 years ago now. Yeah, after Outlaws of Thunder Junction, I believe. Specifically in the context of a Pro Tour draft, that basically cards that have like 3 power and flying can just kill someone. And so at a high skill pod, you shouldn't treat them like they're nothing. The way that I was treating like Rewrite History, a card that just takes a whole lot of setup and a whole lot of combinations to actually do something, you might put Unliving Legionnaire on a plane above it in this context, because with everybody fighting over all the really efficient cards, something very inefficient could actually just be the piece that gets the job done in the end. You're not going to have the same density of hyper efficient value and win conditions that you would in a normal draft. So take what you can get. Invest in cards that can just win a game if they're left unchecked. I think a nice framework for thinking of this is expected value. How good would something be times how likely is it to be relevant? Unliving Legionnaire is basically guaranteed to be relevant. The only requirement is that we play black, and then you're going to have a 3 power flyer. The floor on it, look, it's not a card where the floor of the power level is amazing, but the floor on how relevant it is and how likely it is to make our deck is actually pretty darn high. Pim Particles, it's the probability that I have really good draw your second card synergies times how good it would be to actually have the Pim Particles in that situation. So for example, with Kang, it's a probability that I have Kang out, which is, I don't know, 1 in, maybe 20 on just a given generic turn of a game, times how good it would be, how good Pim Particles would be if I do have Kang out, which is like slightly better than usual. You get an extra drain, but still not that good. Burn-in Zana Plaza is a double chain of reasoning. How good would having a green land be, and how good would having a green land that splashes into white be, times the probability that I get into green and then get into white. And Kree Sentinel, I would put at the lowest bottom rung of that analysis. How good is it to land cycle times how likely is it that I need an off-color land cycler? At the end of all of that, my thinking is just go with the Unliving Legionnaire, right? It's a card that is going to make our deck pretty much every time. It might not be a card we're thrilled to play, but this is a PT top 8. You're not going to be playing only cards that you're thrilled to play. And it actually does something. Pim Particles, it's a card where you might not even want to play it, and it might not even do something. And the other two, you're even less likely to play than that. So for all those reasons, I would be on Unliving Legionnaire. To my surprise, Ken actually took the Pim Particles. And what that tells me is he probably thinks the draw your second card synergies are stronger than I do. He thinks the power of Pim Particles could be better than I think it would be, or he thinks the probability that you actually end up wanting to play it, the probability that you get better things than Kang to go together with it, or more things like Kang to go together with it, is high. So it's an interesting adjustment for me. I actually was high on Pim Particles early in the set. I went lower on it as time went on, and I couldn't really put together those synergies. But maybe Ken is saying, you know what, take another look at this card. You actually can get it to work. And together with his Rewrite History pick, this actually makes me think there's something to these like blue instant and sorcery synergies that maybe I haven't explored as much that he's really pointing to. Next pick, we get Volcanic Villain versus Wakandan Royal Guard. Doesn't really matter. I would take the Wakandan Royal Guard. And maybe it matters. Like, if we do end up back in this green ramp plan, Wakandan Royal Guard is playable technically. So I think it actually does matter, and I would definitely take the Wakandan Royal Guard, but neither one is relevant if we are doing this blue-black thing. Oh, also, something I didn't think about before, even with all of my analysis, a reason to take Pim Particles, this might more effectively cut blue-black. That actually is probably why he did it, and something I didn't take into account. I think the Unliving Legionnaire, the 3/4, the 3/2 flyer, which can become a 5/4 flyer, that could go in black-red, that could go in black-green, could go in a bunch of different black decks, but Pim Particles he would only play in blue-black, so he might just be completely cutting blue-black to try to reap the rewards later on. And actually I can see now that probably tips the balance towards taking the Pim Particles, because part of the value of these dregs of the pack is in crystal clear signaling. Next pick, we're between Vibranium, Energy Daggers, and Super Strength. By the way, you might notice sometimes we get the same number of cards. That's because I stopped bothering to represent basic lands every time. So you can get one off in the number of cards in a pack. Like the last pack technically had like a mountain in it or something. Anyways, I would be taking Vibranium, Energy Daggers just to signal. And that's exactly what Ken does. So, you know, we're agreeing when there's basically no choice. And then this last pick made me realize I was wrong at one point. Pack 1, pick 6, mea culpa, my bad. Sorry, everybody. I thought he was looking at a Reptile Dinomorpher on the screen. He actually was looking at a Rick Jones in this pack when he snapped up the Kingpin's Enforcers over AIM Scientists. So probably on this pack, if I'd known that, I said he should take Reptile. Turns out that would have been a highly illegal move. There was no Reptile in the pack. So what I would have done here is actually probably take the AIM Scientist over Kingpin's Enforcers. He ends up wheeling Rick Jones that I thought was a Reptile, but he has a Kingpin's Enforcers instead of AM Scientist. So it's not Enforcers over a pivot at the top there. It was actually Enforcers over AIM Scientist. So just correcting my my notes at the top right there. All right, and that's pack 1. All right, pack 2, when in doubt, open a bomb. And Ken definitely delivered on this one. We have Coming of Galactus, 2 black and a green. This is a mythic rare. Destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Each opponent loses 2 life. That happens twice on 2 consecutive turns. And then mode number 4, create Galactus, a legendary 16/16 black elder alien creature token with flying, trample, and when it attacks, destroy target land. So the important part is immediately on entry, it's a kill spell. It's only a slightly over-costed kill spell, although the black mana are quite intensive. But then it offers multiple ways to just kill your opponent after that. Sapping them for 4 life, and then making a giant creature that they have to remove. I haven't gotten to play with or against it, but it strikes me as a very strong card. It also should be pretty splashable because it looks like black is likely to be a main color for us after we were getting all that blue-black shipped to us from the right. And it requires 2 black pips and only 1 green pip. Splashing is pretty easy in this set. I wouldn't necessarily say this means that we're pivoting back to blue-green or black-green. Even if we stayed as blue-black, we could just splash the 1 green pip. What would we be taking it over? I guess Killmonger, which is just... I won't say it's strictly worse than the Coming of Galactus, but you can see why I think it's substantially worse, right? They both are a kill spell on entry, and then Coming of Galactus just does so much more. And then what else? I guess another Undercover Scroll and Herbie. That's pretty much it. So I think it's very easy to just take Coming of Galactus here. And then I would have in my mind, maybe I get to wheel the Roxen Brutes because anyone in black will probably take the Killmonger sooner. Some people would just take Herbie sooner. So I'm thinking pick 9. If I see Roxen Brutes come back, that's a signal. And maybe Knight of Wundagore, but probably not. Ken pulled Coming of Galactus and Herbie to the front. I didn't even think to mention Herbie as a reasonable pick, but of course it is. I mean, a reasonable pick if Coming of Galactus weren't in the pack. But then, yeah, he just takes Coming of Galactus. All right, pack 2, pick 2. We get past a phenomenal rare in Cloak and Dagger. The 2/2 for 1 in Orzhov colors, Death Touch, Lifelink, and then when it enters, you choose a creature an opponent controls in their hand, and then you get to exile one of them until this leaves the battlefield. In terms of other cards to consider, I do think Shield Deployment Drone makes the list, and I don't know, maybe... that's probably it. I think it pretty much comes down to those 2 cards in my view, honestly. I'm not impressed by Ant-Man Colony Commander, which is kind of close to our colors. I'm definitely not going to go all the way down to taking a Whiplash here. So I would say we have a classic choice here between drafting for consistency, take the Shield Deployment Drone and just stick with whatever colors we already know to be open from the right, or go for power, take the Cloak and Dagger and see if you can splash it. There's no way that we're pivoting all the way over to black-white. However, this is a set where splashing is extremely possible. So then we would just look for ways to get into white. One way you might think about this is after taking that Coming of Galactus, we could recenter on green as one of our primary colors, try to pick up some more undercover Skrulls, Ant-Man's army, that kind of thing. Maybe wheel this restorative technique, although that's your kind of break glass in case of emergency level of splashing, and then just have flexible splashing into multiple different colors. Maybe splash the Kang, maybe splash Cloak and Dagger. I mean, Kang is really not that great a card anyways. And that's the other thing to say is, and this to me is what makes the decision. In blue, we just do not have actually that much. Yes, we got some signals that blue-black is kind of a safe landing space from the right. But remember what I said at the time was it kind of feels like black is cut and like blue is cut. It's just that blue-black is open. So it's not like we really specifically have strong reasons to be in blue. We got past a We Saving A, but we passed it along. We opened a Trickster's Stratagem, but we didn't take it. Really, in blue, we have one good card. Actually, even including Kang, I would say there's one good card that we have in blue, which is Frozen in Ice. And we're already 2 picks into pack 2. So we're really not losing that much if we venture away from blue. And we could still be blue-black with a splash. So I'm all over just taking the Cloak and Dagger here. One thing I'll call out, the way that Ken arranged the pack, it does not look like he even thought about Shield Deployment Drone. It looks like he might be higher on Ant-Man's army than I am. I do think Ant-Man's army can be good in sealed. It's an army in a can, an Ant-Man's army in a can, if you will. But in draft, I found it way too slow, and the synergy, +1/+1 counter synergy, is not where you want to be. But that's interesting that he seems to like it more. But I wouldn't read too much into it, because I think he was just always going to take Cloak and Dagger. I think it's just clearly the pick here. Okay, pack 2, pick 3, and I'm going to try not to talk for hours about this one, because this situation is so incredibly interesting. I often think kind of the middle or beginning or middle of pack 2, when you have some allegiance to a color pair after pack 1, but then you've opened potentially some off-color bombs in the first pick or 2 of pack 2, and you're facing the decision about whether to stick with your original color pair or pivot. I often think this might actually be the most important and interesting part of a draft. And this illustrates it perfectly. I'm so curious to see what Ken does. So basically, look at the cards that we have so far. What do we know about the table? First things first, we know the people to our right have not been in blue-black because they passed us that Kang into Hidden Lair. We saw a bunch of blue pretty late, and we saw some black pretty late. So I think we're pretty darn confident of that. I think we know they are in white. We did get one stray Take Up the Shield, but that was pretty early, and we basically didn't see any white after that. I'm going to stack the pack over here, and I'm just going to lay out what our deck looks like so far. To not be confusing, I'm separating it with a plane. So everything to the right of the planes are cards that Ken has already taken. So look at this. We basically have one pull into blue in Frozen and Ice. We have a bunch of pulls into black. Cruel Alliance is a pull into black, Hour of Defeat, Coming of Galactus. We could argue about Kang. Let's call that a pull into blue and a pull into black, but not really. Then we have really one pull into green, which is Undercover Skrull plus Coming of Galactus. So we're slightly more pulled into black than the other colors, and I would say about equally pulled into green and blue. And then in white, we already have... Sorry, just realized I made a big omission. We have a Cloak and Dagger as well, right? So we actually have 2 strong pulls into white. So I would say we're very confident that we're black right now. But we're actually maybe more confident that we should be leaning white than leaning blue, because Take Up the Shield plus Cloak and Dagger is a better combination of cards than Frozen in Ice plus Kang, right? If I just filter this down to good cards, it looks like this. So whatever direction we go in is almost certainly going to include black. If we want to go green, like if we find good green cards and we get strong green signals, we could still splash into Cloak and Dagger. We could still splash into Kang after centering on green-black. And hey, maybe we can play like blue-black splashing Cloak and Dagger as well. But actually, if we go white-black with a minor green splash, we're also going to be able to play most of our good stuff. So I do think that just taking a strong white card is on the table. Also, taking Fixing sounds really good for us. So with that said, looking at the pack again, the cards that stand out to me, Gleaming Bastion would help us splash from blue into white, and Cloak and Dagger is what we're interested in splashing for in that situation. AIM Labs would help us splash from black, black into blue, or maybe if we're playing blue-black primarily, it would make our base mana better so that it hurts less to play, say, 1 Forest for Coming of Galactus to get with Landcyclers, or 1 Plains for Cloak and Dagger. Or you could just take a really solid white card in Okoye. Look, it's not a bomb, but it's a really, really good card. And if you can go in the black-white direction, I think you're probably going to be happy. Maybe black-white splashing green for Coming of Galactus could end up being pretty sweet with your Take Up the Shield plus Cloak and Dagger. And then finally, you could get a little bit more entrenched in blue-black by taking, I would say, specifically either Bold Biochemist or Hydra Infiltration. I would not even consider any of these other cards, and I wouldn't even really consider Hydra Infiltration in this conversation, nor do I really think that Bold Biochemist rises to the level of these other cards in this spot. So here, what would I do? The safe pick is something like Gleaming Bastion, but I think we just have to say this actually constitutes a pretty strong white signal, even though it is only pack 2, pick 3. Getting the Gleaming Bastion probably means a rare was not taken out of this pack. And then in terms of the uncommons, we have 3 left or 4 left. We have 4 left, 4 uncommons left. So the rare is left and 4 uncommons. Now, there could have been a second rare in this pack because play boosters. But having said that, look, it looks like, maybe a white common was taken out of the pack, but we cannot be sure. It just looks like multiple commons have been taken out and none of them were white. And what this really reminds me of is something that LSV has talked about. He talked about this during Lord of the Rings on the LR podcast, but it was about a previous set where he was saying basically in sets with really extreme color imbalance, where one color, in this case it's white, is head and shoulders above the other. There was some team of drafters that went to the Pro Tour with a strategy of, we know we're going to get cut pack 1 off of that color, but because we get hard cut off of that color, pack 2, we might have the opportunity to just force it. No matter what, just take that color pack 2 because it's so strong. And the people to your left, when you get really, really, really cut out of a color, the people to your left also get really cut out of that color, right? And so that means that color is going to be somewhat open from the left, even if it's completely cut from the right. So in this situation, Ken could say, look, we saw basically 0 white pack 1. The person to my left is not going to be white if anyone's not going to be white. So then I can get my fill of white cards pack 2, potentially, this is one line of reasoning. And then even if that's only 10 cards, white is so strong that 10 white cards you pick up pack 2 is enough to make a primary color out of it and do well in a pod draft. That's one strategy. LSV was saying that might be a good strategy with, I guess, black or red or blue maybe in the Lord of the Rings in the context of a Pro Tour draft. It also makes me think of the Pro Tour for Lorwyn Eclipsed, where Elves wasn't even that dominant, but because it was a 5 archetype format, your options were limited. And I believe we had a situation where Seth Mansfield was to the left of 3 Elf drafters in a row, and he still drafted Elves. And the theory was, I believe, look, I'm not going to get very good Elves pack 1 or pack 3, but pack 2, I'm going to be the first Elf drafter in the chain of 4. So he could see it was completely cut. That means it's going to be flowing to him pack 2. And so his idea was, well, I'm just going to make it up in equity by getting my pick of Elf cards for an entire pack. And then my deck is going to turn out to be maybe a little worse than the person 3 to my right, who's at the front of the chain pack 1 and pack 3. But it's going to be better than the person to my right and the person 2 to my right because they're in the middle from both sides and just getting cut 100% of the time. So yeah, anyways, having said all of that, would I take Gleaming Bastion or Okoye here? I kind of think you make a statement and just go for Okoye. To be quite honest with you, it's very possible you should just take the Gleaming Bastion to make your mana good. But look, honestly, the reason I'm taking Okoye here is because I think we very well might not end up blue. So Gleaming Bastion is a little bit useless. It's a little bit at cross purposes. If the point of speculating on white is to replace blue, then why would I be trying to splash from blue into white? The situation in which Okoye is useful to me is exactly the situation in which Gleaming Bastion is not useful to me. Pretty much, you could contrive situations in which we end up Esper or blue-white or whatever, but very, very unlikely. So yeah, I think I would just take Okoye. And I should also say I got a little bit of an assist from Ken because it's soon I have to look at the pack in order to get it up on Arena to like type out the cards. As soon as he got the pack, he pulled out the Okoye. So I got a little bit of an assist from him. This is like not a fully 100% independent pick, but I will say I swear before he pulled it out, I was already thinking about it, because as soon as I saw that Cloak and Dagger, I was thinking like, can we actually just go white? And then I thought like, you know, I think a good white card next might be enough to push me in a white direction. So I was prepped and ready as soon as that Okoye showed up. Fast forwarding a little bit from where I was, Ken also grabs this Gleaming Bastion out of the pack. So he's basically, it looks like between Gleaming Bastion, Okoye, and Powerful Broker. Maybe he's considering Super Intelligence. I would be surprised. But hey, he took that Rewrite History. So maybe, and the Pim Particles. So actually maybe Ken is high on some Draw 2 deck. Okay, he goes for the Gleaming Bastion, which is interesting to me. I mean, that's like a safer thing to do, right? The Okoye is really speculating on a pivot, but I don't know. Our blue is looking so bad. Like, yes, we did get a little bit more blue than we took. We do have these strong blue signals all the way at the bottom left there. So you can see blue was notably open pack 1 and white was closed. But I don't know. Aren't we just more likely to be black white? In which case, what are we splashing in blue? Maybe Kang. We already have a hidden layer. If we get like a Rocks and Brutes and stick in an island, then we can just play whatever we want. Maybe I'd rather splash a Frozen and Ice than Kang. I don't know. This is the safer pick, but I feel like if you're thinking about white, just go for it. Okoye's a great reason to be in white. But hey, I'm here to learn, not to argue. I'm going to summarize this as Ken took the land over the payoff for having that land. I just semi-accidentally listened to the commentary on that pick. I super respect Chiana and Marshall, but I've been trying to be independent, provide independent value by not listening to what they have to say. But I played that back with the volume on, and they were 100% in favor of taking the dual land with the theory like eat your vegetables, respect your mana. Which, look, I mean, I 100% cosign, but I think my difference from that point of view is we're not taking Okoye. They didn't even consider Okoye, by the way. My theory of taking Okoye is not we're going to play 3 colors with Okoye. It's we might just pivot. We really don't have that much going on in blue. I do think there were blue signals pack 1, so they might be betting on the future of getting back into blue-black pack 2, but I kind of think that pack was as meaningful a signal as we saw in all of pack 1. Like the strength of that white signal might even outweigh the blue black signal, and here's why. Kang plus Hidden Lair. I mean, Kang is just not that good a card, frankly. It's a 4-drop that has no enters effect, no ward or protection, intensely synergistic in a synergy that you probably don't really want to be doing. It's slow, it's understated. And then you have Hidden Lair, not a very strong signal. It just happened to be another blue-black card, but it's a land. It's not a reason to be in the colors. So I don't think we should be making a huge fuss about hoping to find our way back into blue-black when Okoye plus Take Up the Shield plus Cloak and Dagger is already a better package in white already than we had after an entire pack thinking we're probably blue-black. So I'm not thinking about doing some sketchy 3-color mana thing. I'm thinking about just straight up pivoting. All right, pack 2, pick 4, another fascinating situation. So in pack 2, pick 4, there's a card that I think just stands head and shoulders above all the other cards. Sonic the Hedgehog here. I would just be taking it, absolutely no doubt, because it'll go in any deck that you build. Like I've said multiple times, we have so much stronger allegiance to black than any other color, and this is like kind of a bomb, honestly, in black. I'm such a fan of 2/2 for 2 and a black. Target player exiles a card from their hand, basically. Every time we see it, it's great. Claw is absolutely no exception, so I would just be snapping up the Sonic. But there are some other considerations. There are 2 cards especially that I want to call out. I mean, there's technically like mana fixing. Hell's Kitchen is not where it's at. We're not trying to splash red. Dependable Quinchette is another break glass in case of emergency type of fixing. So I would really not be looking at that either. I do want to call out Helicarrier Strike. If you were serious about the pivot, like if I had just taken the Okoye, I would be reassured by the presence of a Helicarrier Strike in this pack. But there's no shot I would take it over Sonic in like basically any situation. So I'm between Sonic the Hedgehog and Kid Loki here. I mean, I'm actually not. I'm easily on taking the Sonic Subjugator, but I pulled out Kid Loki for a reason, which is This is an interesting test for me. I have thought throughout this draft, ever since Ken took the Pim particles over whatever else, there was something solid in there. What was it? Oh, it's at the top there. Pim particles over Unliving Legionnaire. I've thought that he maybe likes this draw 2 deck. It seemed like this is a piece that you would probably take over the Legionnaire if you think that synergy is where you want to be after having Kang and whatever. And Kid Loki is like one of the premium payoffs. If you can get like 3 Kid Lokis, your Pim Particles is actually looking sweet, because put a counter on a creature, draw a card, it becomes unblockable. That's way better than whatever synergy you have with Kang or this card in a vacuum. So if Ken really considers the Kid Loki, I think that should tell me something about the format, which is Ken likes this draw 2 deck. Maybe he's really looking for like Baron Struckers, and then the ideal card would be the Leader Super Genius. I mean, it's one of the designed archetypes. It just didn't really get there, but this would tell me that Ken is like kind of high on it as a nice place to land. But having said that, I'm just absolutely taking Claw all day, every day. I would be pretty shocked if he takes Kid Loki over Claw. All right, I'm actually feeling really good about this because those are the 2 cards he has at the front, Kid Loki and Claw. And the reason I feel really good about that is it's not just testing my set understanding. I think 90+% of drafters would just take Claw here. So it's not like that was an amazing read. But the fact that I knew that he was going to, or I thought he might consider Kid Loki, that makes me really happy because it means I am actually understanding where his head is at and clear on the learning I'm supposed to get from this draft, which is he's higher on blue-black draw 2 than I would be. So let's put that learning up at the top. Get higher on Dimir draw 2. Pack 2, pick 5. What a messed up pack. I mean, this is just horrible. Looking pretty bad for my white pivot idea, I must admit. So we're looking at entirely Jund cards here. There is 1 green card, Hercules, 1 black card, Grim Reaper, and a Project Deathlock Soldier, technically. I mean, it is like in the slowest, worst loop ever with Kingpin's Enforcers. You can sack, what is it? 6 mana to draw a card. But repeatable. Okay, and then we do have a dual land in Pim Technologies. Someone is going to say that they did something awesome with Scarlet Hulk. That's a really weird edge case. Red Hulk is maybe the best card in the pack by its virtue, but the last thing I want to do at this point is try to pivot into red. I mean, Hercules is not the worst card in the world either. So I think I'm probably between, I mean, I'm just not going to take a red card. I would not even consider it here. Someone at the table is probably in red at this point, and you do not want to be fighting for red in this set. So I'm probably between, you could take any generic black card for the signaling power, but I think they're both just so bad it's not even worth. Maybe I've actually never played with Grim Reaper. I've just never cared to. I think it's just not even something I would think about. It's probably between Hercules and Pim Technologies. The Hercules situation, I mean, it's rough. This is a rough spot. This is not where you want to be. Like, the situation, Simic is a long gone dream for us. This situation in which we're playing Pim Technologies is very niche. You really do not want to play double off color lands that don't touch your primary color. So this we would maybe play if we were in blue, black, and wanting to splash green. I guess that's the thing. It would help us splash coming. That's a specific use case for Pim Technologies. If we do end up settling back into blue, black, it would help us splash Coming of Galactus. So that's actually a pretty good use case. And then Hercules, it's just like a subpar 3-drop if we end up in green. So for me personally, I think I'm just on Pim Technologies. Disappointing pack, but I actually think it's a pretty easy Pim Technologies after thinking it through. All right, Ken agrees. All right, pack 2, pick 6. We actually still have a rare Super Soldier Serum. Not surprising that it's still in the pack. Another uncommon in Team Tactics, some random red card, and then actually a bunch of options. So there is an Echo Perceptive Prodigy. We have a Panther Pounce, but I will say, I think my white read was maybe just bad. Maybe I overestimated the strength of the white signal. Maybe let's shrink that down a little bit. Doing it in retrospect is cheating. But you know, I think if we're playing white at this point, it's going to be on the splash. In order to pivot, we would have needed to see a sustained series of good white cards. So then our options are, yes, Visions of Villainy in one of our core colors, in our core color, but a much weaker card. I'm actually just going to set that one aside. I don't think I would sacrifice the power to take Visions of Villainy just because we're more sure that we're in a color that would play it. So then I'm probably between these three cards. I don't know how likely we are to be green at this point. We have essentially 0 pulls into green. Am I going to splash a Pet Avengers? Unlikely. It does occur to me that Echo has some pretty sick targets. Cloak and Dagger, Claw, Kang. It's from a creature source, right? So, I don't know, Kingpins and Forces, I guess. But especially with, like, I don't know, echoing a Cloak and Dagger sounds pretty good. How does that even work? I guess you exile 2 things under Cloak and Dagger? I'm a little bit lower on Atlantis attacks than I used to be. And I will say, like, well, we're never splashing Echo, but Atlantis attacks is basically impossible to splash because of the double blue pip. Although it's easier by the time you get to 7, but it's a tough choice. But I think I kind of want to settle back into blue-black territory at this point because that was just our strongest, most consistent signal from pack 1. It's really hard. I might just take the Echo as a cheap creature. It's like it's like an affordable creature that has some synergies. It does seem like Ken has a preference for blue synergy cards that are not the most impactful. So maybe there's something he likes in this area and I should be learning. Yeah, I guess I'm on Echo. It's a creature, it keeps you alive. And it has some nice synergies in the deck, and it's safe with the signals that we saw pack 1. So Ken pulled the same 3 cards to the front, except I definitely had Atlantis attacks higher than Visions of Villainy. So that's definitely a difference here. Whoa, he actually picked Echo. That's cool. Not a card that's good by consensus, but I think in this spot, it makes a lot of sense. That is definitely a card that gets weighed down in the win rate data by just, if you just stick it in a deck, it's not going to be good. So probably people are just playing it a lot in situations where they don't have good synergies with it, but I think Ken just does. And I don't know, at a Pro Tour draft, you have to be scrappy. And just taking a creature that's on the cheaper end is like a way to have a more consistent deck. Another interesting pack, much more reassuring than that like all Jund pack. It's interesting, like I kind of think Doomrain Supreme, let's see, maybe Tigra, Atlantean Cavalry, Ultron Drone. They're all on kind of the same level, especially Doomrain Supreme, Atlantean Cavalry, and Ultron Drone. These are all on a level of like, it could make our deck, but we wouldn't be happy about it, especially Ultron Drone number 2. Then there are cards where like Serpent Specialist, if you were still thinking that you might end up green, you could definitely, that would be the pick. In my opinion, especially after taking that Echo, the thinking at this point is let's go back to basics and stick with our blue-black signals. And also, Ken does seem to really like something to do with like draw 2 or something to do with blue-black connive. So maybe Atlantean Cavalry is just the safe pick here. It's a creature. It has almost appropriate stats. It's about equivalently bad to the other cards anywhere near our colors. So that's probably what I would just go with here. Just basically back to basics. We know blue-black is a safe landing place. Just take the functional creature in those colors. Okay, so this is really interesting. He has the same 4 cards I mentioned pulled to the front. It's Atlantean Cavalry. Ultron Drone is kind of hidden, but it's in there. Then you have Doomrain Supreme and Serpent Specialist. So he thought about those 4. But then he actually ends up taking the Serpent Specialist out of the pack. That was kind of a surprise to me, but I don't know. I guess maybe he thinks Serpent Specialist... I mean, we're not looking at signals here, right? So it's not like signals matter because we're only going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... we're going to see 6 or fewer cards per pack from these same people passing to us. And these are going to be the worst cards. They're probably going to be predominantly red. So it's more telling us where his head is at in terms of colors he might end up in. I guess he still thinks he might be green, black, splashing blue. I kind of thought that taking Echo was saying the opposite. So this is a bit of a seesaw. Maybe he has more of an appetite for kind of flip-flopping than I do. I'm going to put like speculating / seesawing at the top here. He did it a little later than I would have. Because if you're taking Serpent Specialist this pick, wouldn't you take the Pet Avengers last pick? That's what I don't really understand. But okay, Serpent Specialist. All right, pack 2, pick 8. Feels nice. Feels like we're in the right spot. I mean, we have essentially 5 playables for our deck in this pack. Not all cards you would be happy to play, but I would take every card from I Am Iron Man through Synthoids, and currently it would make the deck. But I think you just want the Land Cycler here, right? An on-color Land Cycler is something we've definitely been wanting. We could stick in 1 planes for the Cloak and Dagger. Our mana are otherwise probably pretty good, whether we end up green, black, or blue, black. And we do know that black is a central color for us. That's like the one color that we're completely certain of. So yeah, I'm definitely on just Rocks and Brutes. He really thinks about AIM Synthoids here. which is extremely validating to me because in the early format, I was actually so high on that card as a nice way to stay alive and achieve consistency, and it's done so badly in the data. Nice to see that he's actually really thinking about it above like Unliving Legionnaire, I Am Iron Man, this kind of card. But yeah, then he does end up taking Rocks and Brutes, which I think makes sense. Pack 2, pick 9. Here is what this pack looked like last time we saw it. This was our Pack 2, pick 1. Remember, can you remember what I said about the card I was thinking of to see if it wheels? That card was Rocks and Brutes. I said if Rocks and Brutes wheels, that will tell us something. So keep that in mind when I put up what we do see in Pack 2, pick 9. So here's what came back. We did get the Rocks and Brutes back. We also have a Wiccan. I do wonder if there's some temptation to take the Wiccan. I'm not 100% certain. I mean, I think our curve is not so good, so I think just taking the Rocks and Brutes makes a ton of sense to make sure you have something productive to do on turn 2 more of the time. I will also say I don't know how many things we have that go with Wiccan, like flickering things. Kang, you can get an extra connive out of that. Claw and Cloak and Dagger, you have to give the card. No, Claw you can flicker. That one's good. Cloak and Dagger, you have to give the card back if you flicker it. So really not that much. I guess Frozen and Ice, you can blink Frozen and Ice and put it on something else. So there's some stuff to do with Wiccan. So if you're high on Wiccan, it could make sense, but I think I definitely would just take Rocks and Brutes. We still don't even really know what our colors are, and our curve is so bad. I'm not looking to take understated 5-drops. So I was actually way off this time. I did not listen to Ken when he said, I'm still thinking about green when he snapped up that Serpent Specialist. Knights of Wundagore, I was worried about the curve, and Knights of Wundagore is a 2-drop. So I guess that's, I didn't even really think about that. We, I guess, are considering green still. So that is an option. Having said that, he actually takes the Wiccan, which I'm surprised by. I'm surprised that you would take the Wiccan over the Rocks and Brutes here, but okay. I'm going to call this like ++ for synergistic blue. That's what Ken seems to be drawn to more than I am, just very consistently across the board with cards like Rewrite History, Pim Particles, and then Wiccan. That's a through line. Pack 2, pick 10. We're looking at some not very good green cards, a not very good black card, and then Ant-Man Colony Commander. I'm going to take Ken at his word that he's thinking about blue-green with that Serpent Specialist. I mean, maybe he's primarily thinking about blue-black, but at this point, maybe we really are considering Simic. You could actually make a coherent argument for every card in this pack. I'm not so sure about Wakandan Royal Guard. Stolen Stark Tech, I guess if you were really interested in staying black, which it seems like Ken is not so much. Restorative Technique, if you thought you would be green based and really needed the help splashing. We do have Undercover Scroll, a land cycler or two, and a whole bunch of duels. So I'm not so convinced that we're in the emergency spot that you would take Restorative Technique. So, and he actually seemed to consider taking the Ant-Man the first time that we saw this pack a million years ago. And this really points to here's why I actually would favor taking the Ant-Man here. This is a signal. Let's add some little signal markers. The fact that a green-blue card specifically wheeled with multiple green cards in the pack, because this is on the wheel, it means that somebody did not take it before, or nobody took the green-blue uncommon out of the pack. That was this pack, and no one took the 2 green cards. Shield Deployment Drone is gone. So someone took a blue card, but that's just a blue card. They could be in white, blue, or whatever. And we wheeled the only Simic card. So very likely there's just no Simic drafter at this table. So I would be taking that. I will say we do have a huge allegiance to black. So if you do end up leaning Simic and following that green-blue signal, then you will definitely be playing 3 colors and need to actually make sure that you have your mana under you. Now, whenever I talk about this kind of thing, people do say like, oh, it's the end of pack 2. Like, what do signals matter? Pack 2, you're just getting cards from people who are not going to pass to you again. The important point here is this wheeled. Every single person had the opportunity to take this Simic uncommon. Nobody did. And if you remembered the pack accurately, which would be really hard, but if you remembered, you would know it's like the top Simic pick in the pack, other than the Shield Deployment Drone potentially. Putting that together with the presence of a bunch of green cards, even if you didn't remember what this pack used to have in it, it should point the way to Simic being open at the table. So I would just snap up this Ant-Man. So Ken does not do that. He thinks about it, but then he actually takes the Restorative Technique. I mean, it's very good to get your mana under you, but what that tells me is he's probably thinking I actually don't really know. I'm actually having a little bit of trouble understanding when he's taking a green card, when he's taking a black card, when he's taking a white or a blue card. I don't know what he's planning his primary colors should be, because I mean, if blue were a splash, why would you take Wiccan over Rocks and Brutes? If green were a primary color, why would you take, and blue were a splash, why would you take Echo over Pet Avengers? But Ant-Man, it would go in a deck where green and blue are both primary colors, so it would kind of be coherent with all of that. Restorative Technique you would take in the situation that green is a primary color. Wiccan, you're probably not looking to splash, so you would want blue to be a primary color. So we kind of have three. I have trouble imagining that black is the splash. Maybe it is. Maybe he's thinking that black is going to be his splash color. Splash Cruel Alliance, Claw, Hour of Defeat, and then play Rocks and Brutes as a cycler. But then how are you splashing Coming of Galactus? That's what I don't understand. I don't understand whether he thinks blue is his primary color or green is his primary, or whether, yeah, which one of those is primary, which one of them is secondary. Every time I try to make up my mind and go for it, he does something different. I guess Ant-Man would be at odds with playing Coming of Galactus, but you could just splash blue. You could be playing green-black primary, splashing blue for the Ant-Man. I don't know. I just have trouble understanding the exact situation where Restorative Technique is better. And also where we should have been taking all of those pretty mediocre blue cards that I don't think we would ever really want to splash over, I think, better green cards, which we did some of the time, but not all of the time. That's definitely confusing me. All right, next pick. He made this pick instantly, so I can't claim any independent thought here, but I don't think there really is much to think about. I would just take the Powerful Broker, and that's exactly what he did. One interesting thing is people have been high on Shield Helicarrier, but I think it's for a very different deck. We're really not looking for 4 mana non-creatures that have no... Well, it has an effect on entry. It makes 2/1/1s, which is, you know, something, but far from what you're paying for. For these last few, they pick so quickly that I can't really make up my mind independently. Basically, as soon as he sees the card, he has to make a pick. He took the Gorilla, which makes sense to me. It's a green 2 drop, and now we're thinking about just going green, I think. But isn't that kind of the opposite decision-making as Restorative Technique over Ant-Man? It feels like we just flipped again because, I don't know, maybe he's thinking of green-black primary, and that's why he didn't take the Ant-Man, so that could be one reason. But, like, Dependable Quinjet is just as bad mana fixing, or maybe a little bit better mana fixing than Restorative Technique. Maybe a little worse, I don't know. But it's like sometimes we're taking the creature for a green deck, sometimes we're taking the bad mana fixing. Hard for me to predict which one, but also he's making the decisions instantly. I'm not judging, I'm trying to learn. Second last pick, some really nice news. We actually got Hercules back, which is really wonderful. We almost thought of taking that 8 picks ago, so that's really good news. And then the last pick is a basic. Okay, so before pack 3, let's quickly take stock of the deck so far. Okay, so here is our pool so far. I'm just going to do a little bit of cleanup and suggest the most likely deck out of all of these cards that he's taken. So first cut, I really don't think you're splashing multiple white cards, at least with what we have so far. It really does look like green is going to have to be a primary color with the Undercover Scroll, Restorative Technique, a dual land touching green. So we're pairing green with either blue or black. I'm way more likely to be playing green, blue, I think, with the number of cards that I have. I don't know. This is why I'm a little confused about which one is the secondary color. I think you really want black to be a primary color because you have Coming of Galactus with the double black pip. Cloak and Dagger, if you're green-blue, is going to be a double off color splash. So maybe this is the kind of thing he was thinking when he didn't take the Ant-Man, and I should have thought of that. It's actually pretty hard to play your best cards if you're green-blue, but I guess you can splash it with a single blue pip. So if you're primary green-black, you could play the Ant-Man by splashing that. But anyways, I'm way more likely to want to be black. So probably playing Kingpins Enforcers. Not excited to play Kang, but I could play that as a splash. And then not playing the most mediocre blue cards that we have. And probably you're looking for a deck that's something in this neighborhood. I still don't really like the Wiccan. I'd rather have had that Rocks and Brutes. Don't really want to be splashing it if possible. So I think the deck looks something like this, and then you play 1 Plains, probably. Gleaming Bastion, as I said when we took it, it is double off color here. So you are kind of in that sort of messy zone. But yeah, it's a Pro Tour draft. Tough pod, tough pod. All right, let's see pack 3. All right, so here is the pack 3, pick 1. You get Avengers disassembled as the rare. I mean, you know, a mini board wipe that could be good if you're in red, but double red is so far from what we're doing. The uncommons are not really worth talking about. There's a Human Torch, Iron Lad, and a Crossbones. We're not like in the villain synergy situation. There is a supervillain lockup, but there's also a web up. And between these two, I would definitely prefer the web up. By the way, I do want to say, as soon as he got this pack and he saw the web up, he pulled it to the front. But in the split second before that, I independently thought, oh, I would be so glad to take web up here. The thing is, if we're already splashing for Cloak and Dagger, and we have a Gleaming Bastion, and we have our Rocks and Brutes, and we have our Undercover Scroll, that's just the fixing that we have so far. And that's already 4 pieces of fixing, 4 ways of generating a white pip, and you would play a Plains on top of that, right, to make your Land Cycler be able to hit white. So that means we actually already could take even 1 or 2 more white cards, and we don't even have to pick up fixing for it. We just wield a Rocks and Brutes, so the chances that we get another Land Cycler after this are very high. And especially between Rocks and Brutes and Rapid Rescue, we might even be wheeling a card that helps us for consistency, like even more likely out of this pack. So you could take the Gorilla just to have another 2-drop in the color that it seems like we're leaning towards playing at this point. The most recent signal that we got was green after all. But having said that, I think I'm just taking the removal spell. I think I'll just take Web Up. I have the splash for it, why not? Oh yes, also I forgot to mention Fisk Tower. There are actually 3 ways of getting back fixing for this. So you could also say, hey, isn't Hero in Training a better common than Web Up on average? It's true on average, but that's because in the white curve out decks, this is the best way to curve out. So it's just the best way to do the best strategy. We're not in that lane at all. So you're not splashing Hero in Training. Splashing Web Up makes a lot of sense when you're a little short on removal. We're not necessarily short on removal, but we're in a lane that wants a lot of removal, kind of green-black mid-range. So I think I would just say Web Up. I think if you're taking Gorilla, pick one of any pack, you're disappointed. Ken starts by thinking about basically the same cards that I'm thinking about. I'm actually surprised he has like Hero in Training this high. I would usually not think that's a card that you're supposed to splash. He actually puts Rapid Rescue ahead of Gorilla, which I'm not shocked by either. I mean, at least he does this at some point. I don't know if that's like his sincere pick order or something, but I mean, Rapid Rescue is fantastic for consistency, and what this deck needs is a nice little extra splash of consistency, let's say. Then he does go ahead and snap up the Web Up. And I definitely think that's the right call. It makes good sense to me. All right, pack 3, pick 2. The rare is gone from the pack. Sorry, these are all uncommons. I would narrow it down to a few cards. So first of all, we have to be happy to see Hour of Defeat. I think we're green-black. I'm pretty sure. And if we're splashing Web Up, then like, you know, Hour of Defeat is on a similar level. It's in a worse color, but a very similar effect. A little bit pricier, but also a little bit more permanent. It can't be blown up by a Gorilla. So I think I'm like equivalently happy to take that. And it's also not on the splash, which is a big bonus. So I'm maybe even a little happier to take that than the Web Up. Restorative Technique is not where you're looking to take this early. A bunch of red cards. I don't think that we're on these like mediocre to bad blue cards like the Giant Size Flying Ant. It's a solid card, but I'd rather take AIM Scientists. And then the one other card I was thinking of was you could take Agent 13 for some splash equity here. But I tend to think, I don't think this is a card that you want on the splash either. I do think it's better on the splash than Hero in Training, but why splash when we have a good card in our colors? So I think I would just take the Hour of Defeat. It's powerful enough that I'd rather not take the Land Cycler, especially when we think we might get a black-white land Rapid Rescue or Rocks and Brutes back wheeled out of pack 3, pick 1. So yeah, I think I'm just happily taking Hour of Defeat here. Well, I'm pleased to say he does end up between the 3 cards that I was thinking of. AIM Scientist, Hour of Defeat, and Agent 13. But then much to my surprise, he actually takes Agent 13 over Hour of Defeat. I'm pretty surprised by this because I don't think there's any chance that we're going straight up green-white, right? I mean, that would be quite surprising. Maybe he's thinking of Abzan. It just still seems kind of at cross purposes. Like, for example, if you were going to end up in this line taking fine white uncommons early in pack 3, shouldn't we have taken the Okoye early in pack 2? I feel like I'm on a similar wavelength to him, but we're making decisions, the same decision in different packs. Like I can see the motivation and I go for it, but then he doesn't. And then at a different time, I see the motivation, but I don't go for it, and then he does. But I guess, you know, I did say with the, what do we have? We have Rocks and Brutes. We might be wheeling another Land Cycler, especially with this AM Scientist here. Let's say we have, probably someone else is going to take that, but let's say that we have like an extra Land Cycler out of this pack, very strongly expected. Then we play a Plains. Then we have 2 Land Cyclers. So that's 3 pips for making white. Then we also have Undercover Scrawl, that's 4. And then Restorative Technique, that's 5. So in theory, you could support 3 white cards. So maybe this is maybe he's thinking, I get 3 good white cards. This is a good white card, so I'm going to take this one. But we already have a good white card. Like we could just splash, take up the shield, and play the Hour of Defeat. Maybe he thinks he's low on creatures. That could be the other thing. Maybe early pack 2, he wasn't concerned about creature count yet, but at this point he is. But having said that, we just took a web up over a gorilla, so I don't even know. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to learn from this. Maybe that Agent 13 is cracked, which I already knew. I'm actually just going to say that's the learning. Just get even higher on Agent 13. I think that card is so good. All right, pack 3, pick 3. There's just one best card in this pack, which is We Say Thee Nay. Just on raw power, in anywhere near our colors. It's just We Say Thee Nay. I think it's just a standout pick here. Now, I will say, Ken immediately pulled Call Damage Control out of the pack while I was like transcribing the cards. The instant he saw it, he pulled that one out. And the thing that he's thinking about, it's crystal clear why he did that. It's because Call Damage Control is really good when you have an extremely strong Saga. So you can loop Coming, or not loop, but like get another Coming of Galactus with this. I will say though, Coming of Galactus, maybe not the best one to do it with, because like if you're destroying something, dealing 4 damage, and then getting a 16/16, if that didn't win the game, like are you really going to win the game on another iteration of that? It's like this thing should either win, or the way that you lose after playing Coming of Galactus is probably that they are just beating you quickly. Not that you wait until the end of the saga, get your 16/16, they have a removal spell for it, then you have to spend another turn bringing it back and casting it, then wait another 4 turns or whatever. So I like the way that he was thinking, but I think you still just take We Say Thee Nay. One other thing to mention, I mean, there is like The Thing and Wiccan. I'm well known for my love of getting a million Undercover Scrolls and then ramping out of The Thing on turn 3 or not turn 3, but like, turn 4, turn 5. But that's just not the situation that we're in. I mean, technically you could have the Dream Curve out of Undercover Scroll, gives you 3 mana on turn. So 4 mana on turn 3, then I do Restorative Technique. And then I get to play The Thing on turn 6, but that's not really what we're doing here. And anyways, we might wheel one of these 2 cards. So anyways, I would just take We Say Thee Nay. One thing, by the way, though, that occurs to me, which I think I definitely didn't consider the first time we saw We Say Thee Nay, and he took something else over it. It's got to be a lot worse in an open deck list situation, right? Your opponent knows exactly how many We Say Thee Nays you have. So they know to play around the first one, and if you only have 1 on your deck list, after that, they know that they don't have to play around it. On Arena, in Best of 1 draft, it's much more punishing, or in the Arena Direct, much more punishing. So this card actually goes down a lot in open deck lists, something I didn't consider. Anyways, Ken does go ahead and snap up the We Say Thee Nay over Call Damage Control. Makes sense. Now, this is a super interesting spot. We actually get a rare, pack 3, pick 4. A rare, which is Arc Reactor, not something that we're taking. 3 uncommons, Tigra and Invisible Woman, which are nothing at all. But there is a Spider Woman in this pack, which, by the way, you can play off of your blue colors as well as on the white splash. So that is an absolute gift. Technically, there are some cards for consistency. Maybe Kingpin's Enforcers, AM Synthoids, or Savage Land Dinosaur. I mean, really, I don't think you were looking for Kingpin's Enforcers number 2. I think you would want something to make your mana and curve a little bit better. But wow, Spider Woman is just an absolute gift. So I would just be taking that in an absolute heartbeat. Ken also did not have to think hard about it. Just takes the Spider Woman. All right, very unbalanced pack. Looking like Abzan is a nice open spot. There is a card with a standout power level, which is Super Villain Lockup. There are some okay black cards like Widow's Bite, Ninja of the Hand, and I mean, Red Room Recruit is quite solid. There's technically Agent of Atlas, I guess, and that's kind of all that I would be looking at. For me, like, there's just a huge standout in power level in Super Villain Lockup. Look, last pack, it was totally Jundi. The signals that we've gotten, yes, pack 1, we got those blue-black signals, but ever since then, the signals have not been very blue at all. And I've been trying to jettison blue for a long time. I've been advocating for ever since like the end of pack 1. Remember, I was saying like, look, we really don't have that much allegiance to blue. Why take Gleaming Bastion when you could have a Koyi, and you know it's not going to take that. Like, we had more good white cards at that time with Cloak and Dagger plus Take Up the Shield than we had good blue cards. Okay, in a recent pack, we say the Nay was just the best card bar nothing, so it kind of makes sense. Probably not going to play it on the splash if blue is a minor splash, but we were still kind of trying to figure out where the vibe of this pack would be, especially since we got those blue-black signals early pack 1. But look, at this point, this is not just a strong signal. If I can possibly squeeze this card into my deck, I want to. So I would be all over this supervillain lockup, and then I would be really hoping to wheel or just see a few more mana lane cyclers, rapid rescues, that kind of thing. Undercover Scroll would be the absolute dream, of course. I would even take another restorative technique at this point, probably. But yeah, I would just be taking the supervillain lockup. Red Room Recruiter, Ninja of the Hand are good for consistency, but this card is just head and shoulders above them in power level, and I think we have a good shot of being able to put it into our deck. Ken ends up between Widow's Bite and supervillain lockup. I would be more likely to take the Red Room Recruit over Widow's Bite, so that's interesting to me. But then, as expected, he does settle on the supervillain lockup. That just makes good sense. Pack 3, pick 6 is a really interesting one. So there are actually 3 pieces of mana fixing that I think we should consider here. I mean, the Kree Sentinel doesn't count. I'm going to consider AIM Scientist, Villainous Hideout, and Dependable Quinjet. The question is, and this is the hardest question ever, how many villains do you have? Because if you have a large number of villains, the Villainous Hideout is going to make your mana better, right? If you have a small number of villains, the Villainous Hideout actually makes your mana worse, because it is often going to be a colorless land in a 3-color deck, which is really punishing. So the safe pick is the Dependable Quinjet. You do not have a lot of time. They're getting like, I don't know, 15 seconds here or something. And like, nobody is remembering how many creatures you have that are villains. So the thing to do in a situation like this is, if you can remember if your major things that you need to splash are villains, then that can really help you. So in this situation, Cloak and Dagger is not a villain. Kang is a villain. Coming of Galactus is not a villain, of course. And a bunch of the white cards that we took, Web Up, Supervillain Lockup, Agent 13, is not a villain. So I think it makes sense to take the Dependable Quinjet, but you do have to like really think about one of those things you're not really thinking about, the creature type of your cards. So Ken does pull these 2 exact cards to the front of the pack. And then I thought this was funny. Here's him trying to figure out how many villains he has. Literally me every single time I draft. Me trying to remember 1 pick ago. In the end, though, he does take the Quinjet, which we know is the right choice because we can just look at the cards. He cannot look at the cards while he's picking. So kudos to him. He remembered correctly. The Villainous Hideout would not really do that much for him here. Next up, a really fascinating pack. So Scientist Supreme of AIM kind of looked like that's where we might have been at early in the draft, but we really don't have any artifacts to be copying. And blue-black is no longer our primary color. Like, Ultron Drone is the only thing that could go with, so I think we can write that one out. Kunlun Warrior, we're definitely not playing. Masters of Evil, we don't have anything that goes with that. I'm definitely not a believer in Agents of Hydra, unless we are desperate for a 2-drop, which I don't really think that we are. So that leaves us with Decoy Ploy, which I also don't think is the pick. Herbie and Ant-Man's Army. I might be higher on Ant-Man's Army than other people are, but I think that extra treasure can just be really, really handy. It could be, you know, the thing that lets you play Cloak and Dagger or Coming of Galactus. It's also useful in racing situations. I've had spots where Ant-Man's Army could actually save my life and give me enough time to win the game. And it is just a 3-drop creature. It's got like somewhat appropriate stats. Having said all of that, I think we can just afford to take a Herbie. We, you know, Herbie is not fixing exactly, but it does get you an extra card, get you an extra land on the field, accelerate you a little bit. It's not fixing, but card advantage kind of is a weak type of mana fixing. Just seeing more cards is a way of hitting your colors. And it's not like we're clogged on 4-drops. I mean, actually, we only have 2 4-drop creatures, and I'm not even sure that we're going to play Kang. So I think I would just take the Herbie here. It's close, though. I will not be at all surprised if he takes the Ant-Man's Army. I don't know. I'm actually really 50-50 on this one. Maybe I would just take Ant-Man's army. I'm definitely between these two. We do have way more three drops. Yeah, that kind of settles it. Look at the number of 3-drops. Even I remember when we laid out the deck at the end of pack 2, I was amazed at the number of 3-drops. It was like a huge spike in the curve. So yeah, okay. I think I would go with Herbie. And so does Ken. He actually was considering Masters of Evil over Ant-Man's army, which is interesting. We do not have that many villains, but maybe he just likes the stats, a thing that can kill a player. Pack 3, pick 8. These are the last new cards that we'll see in the entire draft. And what a gift for the last new cards that we see. Getting a surveillance room. I mean, we could hardly have hoped for better. This is fantastic. It's just the king of consistency. It lets you filter, and it also surveils on entry. This is going to help us splash blue if we want to, and really help with our white splash. So that is a superb pickup. Ken briefly thinks about taking the swordsman, but then he just goes for the surveillance room. So pack 3, pick 9. Remember, out of this pack, I had my eye on wheeling one of 3 cards. There was a black-white land, a land cycler, the Rocks and Brutes, and then there was Rapid Rescue. This is a good discipline to have. I do this when I draft. I don't necessarily always voice it. Pack 1 of any, or pick 1 of any pack. Think about the cards that, if they wheeled, would give you information about the table, especially pack 1 and pack 2. If it wheels, what information am I getting? Pack 1, there was one of these with, I think it was a land cycler. Full disclosure, I recorded pack 1 yesterday, so it's a little fuzzy in my mind. Pack 2, though, the one was the Ant-Man's army. When I saw that wheel, I knew that there was probably no Simic drafter at the table. So often it can be like a mediocre gold card that tells you, like, if someone were in that color pair, they would probably take this out of this pack. So if I wheel it, I can be pretty confident no one is in that color pair yet. Another thing is like tiebreaker cards in a few different colors. If you're like, oh, there's the black land cycler and there's the green land cycler. So if one of those wheels, it tells me that one of those colors is a little bit more open, because, you know, there aren't much better cards in one of those colors than the other that people would take over, right? You're trying to think about, like, if this card wheeled, what would give me the most information? For stats people, it's like the maximum entropy wheel. Here, pack 3, though, it's like, what do I think might wheel, because there are a bunch of equivalent cards that would actually help my deck out. And then because I think one of those 3 mana fixers is going to wheel, that was part of the information that I personally used to want to take the supervillain lockup. I said, we're either going to get a black-white land or the black land cycler or rapid rescue. It's just pretty unlikely that there are 3 other people at this table interested in each of those 3 different things. And indeed, that's exactly what happened. We wheeled 1 out of the 3, which is about what I would have guessed. I would not have been able to guess which one we would wheel, but it turns out it was rapid rescue, and there you go. That just helps with our splash. That's just good news for us. And I kind of priced it into the supervillain lockup pick. If we didn't see any of those 3 cards here, I would feel like the supervillain lockup pick was actually a bit riskier, and maybe I shouldn't have done it. I will say I'm a little surprised to see Iron Lad here. I thought there was a blue-red drafter. I haven't watched the games play out yet, so I'm going to be paying attention to that when I watch the games and see what happened to that person's seat. Because remember, there was a previous pack where I think we did not wheel an Iron Lad. But anyways, I'm just taking Rapid Rescue. Ken quickly did the same thing. Not much to think about there. Okay, pack 3, pick 10. I believe this is where we took Web Up over Atlantean Cavalry. We get the Atlantean Cavalry back. The question is, do we think that we need this restorative technique? I'm going to go with no. I think our mana is actually pretty good now. We have the 4 dual lands, a land cycler. We have Herbie. We have the Rapid Rescue, Dependable Quinjet, a restorative technique, and an Undercover Scroll. I think I would rather have something that actually does something and just take the Atlantean Cavalry. That said, though, now we're way less likely to be blue as a main color. I think we're in Abzan. So maybe I do actually just take the restorative technique. I'm not looking to splash Atlantean Cavalry. So yeah, maybe I'm just taking the restorative technique now that I think about it. It's kind of unfortunate that we boxed ourselves into a spot where we can't take the 3-2 for 3, but I think we did it for good reasons. And look, we have enough power that maybe it's not that bad to take the restorative technique, but I really wish I had like the thing or something, like more things at the top end of my curve. If I'm on the scroll, Dependable Quinjet, and restorative technique, double restorative technique, realistically, I think neither of these cards is making our deck. But I guess I'd rather have restorative technique in the sideboard in case it's useful than Atlantean Cavalry. It's probably where I land on that. Ken just didn't even think about it landing in cavalry. He was almost between restorative technique and Iron Lad, but we really don't have artifacts. Maybe he was just thinking about this for like Wind Drake purposes, just having a 2/2 flyer. But yeah, he takes restorative technique. Again, I am surprised to see the Iron Lad wheel. I'm interested to see what happened with that person who took it pack 1 and then didn't take the other 2. All right, pack 3, pick whatever, 11, I guess. It's actually really interesting. So I'm not even thinking about Too Evil to Stay Dead or Kree Commandos. Between Decoy Ploy and The Thing, there is a very obvious argument for Decoy Ploy, which is it goes with some of your best cards. Agent 13, Cloak and Dagger, let's see, Kang, Spider-Woman, very notably, I guess, maybe Wiccan. It goes really nicely with land cyclers. We don't have that many of them, but, you know, I mean, not really nicely. It's never a really nice card to have, but with Rocks and Brutes, that's value. You know, cycle your Rocks and Brutes for a land, bring it and something else back with Decoy Ploy eventually. So, you know, there are good things that you can do with the Decoy Ploy. Having said that, look, I know this is an unlimited splash thing. These are my Timmy tendencies, the fact that I love ramp and draft. But look, we have an undercover scroll and double restorative technique. I might just want to take The Thing. I like this thing about these Dave Humphreys sets that you just get these 7/7 tramples for 6. That's a card that I like to play a lot of the time. So in this ramp deck where I actually think we might be a little bit low on ways of winning the game, and we've already invested in some incredibly underwhelming 2-for-1s like Rewrite History, I kind of think I would just go for The Thing here. Having said that, what most strong drafters would do, I can tell you for a fact, is take Decoy Ploy over The Thing. So that's what I fully expect Ken to do. And I just watched the rest of it, and that's exactly what he did. So I'm going to tell myself, don't be such a Timmy. Stop loving ramp so much. It's a thing I love to do on Arena, and I get away with it, but probably not something I should try if I were ever drafting at the Pro Tour top 8. Just 2-for-1s are good. Pack 3, pick 12 is Invisible Woman, Arc Reactor, or a basic land, and he just takes Invisible Woman, whatever. Pack 3, pick 13, he has a Crossbones and a basic, which is actually awesome. Wheeling the Crossbones here, it tells you he was in the right lane. We always knew that black was the most open color. He read his seat correctly in that sense, and got back a card that could totally be playable. I don't know exactly how many villains we have, but that Crossbones is a nice last little touch. And then pack 3, pick 14 was a basic land. So now I'm going to try to build the deck, and then I'm going to compare it to Ken's, and then I'm just going to summarize my learnings. And then at the end, I have a little bit of a lesson from all of this. I think the deck ends up looking something like this. It's not looking great. The curve is kind of a mess, but I'm not really leaving any 2s on the side. I think I'd rather have black be a primary color than blue, and that leaves my blue splash looking pretty minimal, probably just putting in Kang. You are not splashing We Saving a Echo, Rewrite History, maybe Wiccan if you want a little more card power. I'll be curious to see if he does that. The number of white pips is actually fine. We probably play 1 island, 1 plains, or we might actually be able to get away with not even playing an island. I think that's seriously on the table to just play a plains and then all swamps and forests, because we have essentially every other land making blue pips plus undercover scroll. If you do play the Wiccan, definitely you should put in an island. It's a little bit messy. He did get a lot of card power in there though, and this is a messy situation. It's a Pro Tour draft. And he does have like win conditions. He has really good removal, Hour of Defeat, Web Up, Cruel Alliance, Supervillain, Lockup, and Spider-Woman. We also could play the Frozen and Ice if we want to, but I just don't think... Wait, am I playing it? Where did it go? I accidentally cut it from the list. Yeah, we could play this Frozen and Ice if we want to, but I just think you don't really want to make your mana worse just to squeeze more removal in there when you already have tons of removal. Oh, by the way, another thing about Decoy Ploy that I didn't mention, it's good with Rapid Rescue. All right, now for the big reveal where Ken went with the deck. So here is Ken's build. Our 1-drop slot is exactly the same. In the 2-drop slot, he does play We Saving A. I did not have We Saving A in there. In the 3-drop slot, I leaned a little bit more on these random green pieces that we picked up, Hercules, Powerful Broker, and Restorative Technique, centering the splashing in green. But I think he noticed something nice that I didn't, which is you can just use the dependable Quinjet instead of Restorative Technique, reduce your dependence on green. Then you get to play like Ultron Drone as like an equivalently bad 3-drop to like Powerful Broker. And then that actually frees you up to play Frozen and Ice because you can actually play some more lands, some more islands specifically. Then our 4-drop slot is identical, except he didn't play Crossbones. I will admit I did not bother to count the number of villains, so that doesn't surprise me. Maybe there's just not enough of them. It's not a good card anyways. And then in the 5-drop slot, he did play Wiccan, which I called out as something that maybe you would want to do, consistent with him reducing the overall dependence on green as a primary color. He did not play the Wakandan Royal Guard. So what's interesting to me about this is like the fact that he took Serpent Specialist over We Saving A or something might be a little regrettable now. Wouldn't you rather have the second We Saving A? Maybe not, but green's looking pretty awkward here. It's like you're splashing Undercover Scroll and cheap creatures. I think the green adventure we have to now view as having been it didn't work out. Who knows if it was the right thinking at the time, but that didn't work out. Okay, now to wrap up, what lessons am I learning from this? I think we can boil this down to 2 things. Number 1, he was way more comfortable with uncertainty than I was. It felt like in between packs, he was changing his mind about what his guess was about his primary color. He was way more likely than I was to say, even though last pack I acted as though green is my primary color, now I'm going to act as though blue is a primary color. Then the next pack, he would act as though green was a primary color again. For me, I'm much more tied to like, I just made this decision and maybe I shouldn't, like, I can't really make the opposite decision now that would be inconsistent with it. So I'm actually going to summarize this as sunk cost. Am I falling victim to a certain sunk cost where I'm like thinking that I need to be consistent with my last pick, like a kind of faux consistency? Maybe I should be a little bit more willing to just change my mind even from one pick to the next about what my main color is. That's a general lesson for me. There's also a specific lesson. This is one I can take to different formats. A specific lesson for this one, I think he's a lot higher than I am on the blue and maybe specifically blue-black synergy pieces. I did not want to be taking rewrite history, Pim particles, Kid Loki. I predicted he was going to be higher on than I would be. So I think he thinks the blue and maybe specifically Dimir synergy is just better in Marvel than I do. Now, huge props to you if you made it to the end of this video, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I want to close with a point for the community. Whenever we have a Pro Tour draft, we see a lot of people talking online as though the Pro Tour drafters have no freaking clue what they're doing. They're like clearly doing everything wrong. It's inconceivable how you could be so ignorant and bad at draft as them. And meanwhile, they're competing for a massive prize pool in the top 8 of the top tournament in the world, right? So something doesn't square up here. My firm stance is that we should take a learning mindset to these drafts. And anytime you see something that you don't really get, stop and think. Put yourself in their shoes, really work through the draft, put in the sweat work of actually using your mental cognition here to try to understand what's going on. And then something magical is going to happen. You're going to start winning drafts more. You're going to start getting more gems back. You're going to stop tilting out so much. You are going to find yourself better at draft because you thought through what a better player is thinking in a tough moment. So I see a lot of comments. I'm not trying to call any one person out. Please don't, go tell any particular person off. Please don't. But this is just a kind of object lesson for us to see what not to do. I always see on the videos from the Pro Tour these comments that are like, Ken looked like he was losing his grip on reality in pack 3. WTF with the 5 straight picks of White Splash. When we carefully broke down what he had at that point in the draft, and by the way, the comments it's not just one comment. A bunch of people are talking about the splash. When we carefully broke down what he had at that point, he had one card that you would actually want to splash in white. He would probably play at least one plains, and with that plains, he had 5+ ways of generating white mana with the expectation of wheeling a 6th one out of pack 3 pick 1. So you have 6 and then however many other ways you'll encounter of generating white mana, and you have 1 requirement of those white mana so far. Then what did he do? He took a second white card, which would be supported if you have 4 ways of generating white mana. Then he took a Spider Woman, which can be generated with blue mana, and he's already planning to play blue. Then Supervillain Lockup was head and shoulders above the other cards. The only one where I do think you could argue was the Agent 13 pick. I would have taken Hour of Defeat there, but I don't think it's like out of the realm of. I don't think it's out of touch with reality to take Agent 13 over Hour of Defeat when you already have 5+ ways of generating white pips and only 2 white cards. and you think you're going to wheel a 6th. And then you have like 6 packs where you haven't seen any of the cards in it in between, where you could also see other ways of generating white, which we did. We got a surveillance room pack 3, pick 7. So that was just a good read of the table. I really don't have any understanding of how that's losing grip with reality. I know this one's a joke, but this is the top comment on that video right now. Man's deck looked like he lost connection and logged back on after the draft was finished. Again, look, I know it's a joke, but no, it doesn't. It looks like a professional drafter at a very difficult table making rational decision after rational decision. And we just walked through, and you can go back through the last 2 hours of this video or however long this is, and you can see in detail I have way more time than he does to think about what I would do in this spot. And I have a list of all the cards he's taken so far. He's under time pressure. And I was doing the easy mode version where I can see all the cards. I'm having to take a lot of time with the packs because I'm transcribing it. And still, with all that time, every pivot, every splash made a lot of sense to me. I actually would have pivoted even harder because I would have taken the Okoye instead of the blue-white land. So my mana would have been a little worse because that white pivot would not have paid off. I might actually have ended up in like Selesnya splashing black, which would have made this saga really awkward because I would have been even a little more committed to white. But it does not look like someone disconnected and randomly picked. That's just incorrect. So anyways, by getting to the end of this video, give yourself a big solid pat on the back because you are distinguishing yourself from the people who have that attitude. You have put in the actual hard work thinking with your human brain about a game that is very, very complicated and hard to execute, absolutely correctly, especially when you're with 7 pros. So I really think if you keep walking down this path of actual deliberate, effortful improvement, you are going to find yourself winning more and more, and you're just going to have way more satisfaction out of the game. If the game to you is like mostly random and the things that good players do are totally inscrutable, I don't really see what the fun is. Like, I would be tilted out constantly if I thought I was just at the mercy of whatever, and if a good deck to me looked like the auto picker. Not to say that this is like the ideal draft deck, but you're not going to get the ideal draft deck at the Pro Tour top 8. I'm sorry. So enough said on that point, but I think by watching a video like this, you're doing the right thing. Now, I'm also going to say I'm probably not going to do this style of video again unless people really love it, because wow, is it ever a lot of work. This took about 4 times as long to record as just a normal draft video because I had to actually type out the packs. So definitely let me know what you thought. If there are things that were particularly useful to you, like something I might do next time is just zoom in on a few critical moments. But I think nothing really replaces the learning experience of just going through the whole thing from beginning to end. So still thinking about what format I want this to take in the future. But if you have ideas or reactions, definitely let me know. And until tomorrow, we'll be back, by the way, tomorrow with another episode of Splash Champs, one of my viewers trying to win a box in the Arenadraft without any input from me, and I'm commentating. So make sure to tune in for that and subscribe if you are not subscribed. And until tomorrow, have tons of fun playing Magic, and don't be afraid to splash.